This plot is like a near perfect late season setup. Over to the east, you got a huge chunk of timber, which you'll see on the aerial photo. State owns it. You're not allowed to deer hunt it. This food source up here is very secluded, and it's the first tillable food plot area that these deer get to when they come from the sanctuary along the Illinois River. They have absolutely pounded this turnip and rye plot. You see that white building way out there on the horizon? Everything between here and there is that sanctuary where there's no deer hunting. If you look down this logging road that we put in, it attaches to the railroad tracks, and the pipeline is just this side of it. And that gas line is where you'd have easement to come in from Bureau Junction. You could walk right down those railroad tracks and then come up this little skidder trail that we put in and pop right up in the back side of that plot. We're headed south off the food plot area down this new road. Killer intersection right here. You got an old tree stand that's been here forever. That's a pretty good indication. This little side trail goes across the top of that hog's back, and then this road splits and goes down into the main bottom. And we got looking at that bottom when we were first in here like last winter, and we're like, man, this is a really good spot and there's a lot of deer sign in here, but it's gonna be super hard to hunt because it was such a steep bottom and there were so many little feeder drainages coming in there, and that's where your wind gets weird in those type places. You just kind of never know. There's no consistency with the wind. You can't really plan anything. So we took an area like that, that's a very hard area to hunt anyway, and we went ahead and cut the timber harder out of it. That best use for that part of the property is to be a sanctuary, kind of safe haven for those deer. Make that a thicket down in there since you're not gonna hunt it anyway. We're gonna go down here and take a look at it and show you how these roads feed in and out of here, and take a look at the middle part. This main road, I mean, you can see it, you could drive a 10, 12-foot disc up this road in a tractor if you wanted to. And it's gonna go through the bottom, and it's gonna come out on the hardtop road on the other side. Most guys have their own 40 and 60 horse tractors, and they can do their own food plots or hire somebody with that kind of equipment. We made it big enough to be not only usable by UTV, but a tractor can get up in here and do whatever somebody wants to do with this backfield without having to rely on a farmer. We're in here kind of on the west side, and we had just come through this bottom. Up here across the road is more crop field. So as we're getting up here closer to the food, that sign's starting to concentrate up here. Even with the timber project going on, you still have fresh buck sign. There's still deer in here. I mean, they want to be down here in this bottom. If you look here behind us, this is what we talked about earlier with cutting something hard on purpose. So we cut way more trees out of here than we normally would to let the light in. You can see how much light's coming in that canopy. And it's a wet area anyway, being in a creek bottom like this. The regeneration in here is going to explode. So next year at this time, you won't even recognize this spot. It'll be head-high weeds and little saplings coming back and all this fresh vegetation coming up for the deer to eat and all the security cover for them to be in. This is gonna end up being a primo spot. You just gotta have the vision to know what it's gonna look like and not what it looks like now. There's a strategy behind it. That's why the whole farm doesn't look like this. Only certain spots because they serve a purpose. Looking at it this soon after the logging project is kind of a lot to take in. You can just see in the near future what this is gonna look like in here. Like, you know, we've done several projects like this in similar situations in these bottoms, and I just know how fast this is gonna regenerate. You know, it's good to see somebody trusting the vision and trusting the final product. There's a 50-acre piece of this that we pre-sold and already killed 2 big deer while the logging project was going on. The gentleman that bought that is ecstatic. Now we're a little bit further north, and here's another road that's gonna come out of the bedding thicket, right up that hog's back across that flat, and it's gonna pop out in the same cornfield where we've got the food plot and standing corn up top there. So just another avenue for those deer to come directly from the bedding into the food. The skid steer was just in here, and the middle part of this road is just pounded flat with deer tracks. You'd actually see, if you look down the road, you can see the squiggly line of compacted dirt from the deer using this road already. This hillside has actually got such a drastic terrain change in it that the leaves don't even stay on it. So what that's doing is it's making this bottom road even more of a travel corridor for the deer because of how radical the terrain is at this particular point. But it's also doing the same on the top side of that terrain feature, which happens to be the inside corner of that cornfield. We were just down in the bottom there looking at that logging road, and we were pointing out the steep terrain. We walked up here and there's a freaking pounded trail. I can actually see a giant rub up here we're gonna go check out, but you know, the terrain makes these deer do a certain thing. And when you have property that has a little bit of radical terrain change on it, it sometimes makes that farm easier to hunt because it limits the place that the deer want to travel. Just off the primary food source, these bucks like to cruise these areas because they can scent check all the food without walking out into the open. You can hang a stand on that with good back cover. They're already pounding this road. 15-yard shot to the road, 15-yard shot to that internal trail that comes across this rim. And if you look back out this way, 35-yard shot to the inside of the corner of the cornfield there too. Also, great camera location right here. One good thing about this tillable field that we're getting ready to walk out into, the size. Like, this isn't just a little postage stamp area food plot that you have. This is a legitimate field. Whatever somebody does here food plot wise, you better make it big because it's gonna get pounded. And if you don't leave enough for these deer, you're not gonna have any December or January hunting back here. So back in late summer, we hung a stand back in here on this little flat. It's like a steep cliff comes up and a drainage comes up and everything gets pinched into one place. And I'm sure that that trail with the big rub on it probably wraps around and plugs into this as well. Super high probability spot during the rut. You know, we're educated on these pieces, educated on neighbors, educated on access, been a part hands-on to the strategy, hunted them, most of them ourselves. So when you buy a piece of ground that the Whitetail Group has developed, you're getting all of that knowledge and all of the research and all of the strategy is looped into the package that you're purchasing. All the deer coming out of the sanctuary on the river, when they head this way for food, they pop up and over top of this little saddle here. It's very secluded. There's two big trails that come through here, and it leads this way into the bottom, and then they can follow this ridge top and it flows right into the food plot area.
One of the unique things about this area besides that sanctuary is when we get a lot of rainfall in the fall, all of those deer come up onto this bluff. So you could be overrun by a lot more deer than you think would be possible to be in this area. And historically, this area produces some monsters. I've sold quite a few pieces and know a lot of the landowners, and I keep in touch with everybody over the years, and I get a lot of pictures through text and email. And I know of a 200 killed not too far, maybe literally 10 minutes from here. I just pulled cameras on another possible listing coming up and got a 180 typical 6x5. So the history is here, the pressure is low, there's no outfitters to speak of. It's definitely one of the unknown areas in Illinois that produces quality deer year in and year out. Another client killed a 230 non-typical just south of here on a duck property. All that ground does not get deer hunted. Those guys want no part of the deer know it, and especially in a wet year, they come out of those bottoms up into these bluffs.
I remember Bobby killed his 211, and the year that he killed that, the creeks came way up. It flooded all the bottoms.
Oh yeah.
And I think that deer was living in the bottoms, and Bobby was hunting on high ground, and that deer came up out of the flooded bottoms, and he shot him the day that the creeks were flooded. So similar scenario, you could have deer that have no reason to come out of those bottoms because of the sanctuary, they have everything they need, but when that river floods, that's probably a pretty key time to be hunting a property like this.
Yep, and late season, all that food, all that duck food gets eaten up by the birds. The geese, the ducks, they can clean that out before season is over. And if you've got good winter feed up on top, all those deer are gonna come this way regardless of how wet or not it is. We are on the west side of the property. We've got about a half-acre clearing right here, which is set up for parking, and it's also gonna be a perfect little cabin site. We're right off of a hardtop road with electricity available. It's non-intrusive to the hunting, and there are trails leading from here to get deeper into the timber. Toby and myself are available anytime for questions, and also available 7 days a week for showings.